Hey Dad, what are you making?
Before traveling to Thailand, I thought I knew what bowl flavor was. Then I landed in Bangkok. I tasted dishes that were simple, but somehow layered, balanced, and alive. Sweet, salty, savory, heat, all working together instead of competing. And one plate changed everything for me. Pad See. Sweet, savory, smoky, comforting, powerful. It wasn't just food, it was culture, history, heart on a plate. So today, I'm recreating the Pad See that flipped how I think about flavor and bringing a little bit of piece of Thailand back into my own kitchen. Now let's get started with making it. We're going to start with 1.5 pounds of chicken thighs. These work really well in this dish. You can do chicken breast, but it's going to be a little more unforgiving when you get into the wok. So slice these into strips, and what you're going to want to do is make sure that you're looking for any bones or other little things that still might be in these, because these are boneless, skinless. So I want to make sure I'm trimming these up pretty well. Once you've sliced those up, put them into a bowl and put them aside. Now clean up your board and go ahead and give that a wash. Then we can start to do a little bit of the marinating of the chicken. So we're going to use a little bit of soy sauce here, about a tablespoon and a half. Then we're going to use a little bit of white pepper and sugar as well. So this is about a teaspoon of sugar, and then I'm going to put just a little bit of white pepper in there. Give it a mix with your hands, make sure it's all worked in. Now, here's the thing nobody tells you. Stir fry isn't fast cooking. It's only fast once you have all the ingredients ready. So next, we're going to start to prep our Chinese broccoli here. So we're going to take the stems off of these and make sure we put the stems aside and then leaves in one pile. Then we're going to go ahead and slice up the stems, and we want to do this on a diagonal. So that way we can break down them a little bit and make sure that when they're cooking, they're not as bitter because they're cooked down a little bit faster. If you can't find Chinese broccoli, you can also use regular broccoli or broccoli rabe as well. Both will work. Broccoli rabe is probably a little bit better because it has thicker stems like these. Then just give the leaves a rough chop. Let's set those aside, also put those into another bowl. Then let's start to prep our noodles. I made some fresh rice noodles the day before. I'll probably do another recipe with just those alone. But if you can find these in the Asian market, go ahead and get some fresh ones in the refrigerated section. If you can't find those, I'm going to show you how to use these dry ones as well. The dry ones work. They're not going to be as tender and they're not going to have as much flavor as you get from the fresh ones, but they still very much work. We're going to put these into some water. Since I didn't soak these ahead of time, what I'm going to do is use warm water and change it every 5 to 10 minutes, and it should be done by the time I'm ready to hit the wok. Then we start with making our sauce. I'm going to use a little bit of oyster sauce here. This is about a tablespoon to a tablespoon and a half. Then we're going to go ahead and use a couple of other ingredients. Some of these may not be familiar to you, but I'll show you some of the labels so that way you can see. Next is going to be our soy sauce. That's again about another tablespoon, and then about a teaspoon of fish sauce. And then these next ingredients may not look familiar to you at all, but one that's really good if you can find it, it's called Golden Mountain sauce. This one we're going to do about a teaspoon, and we can use this, but if you can't find that, go ahead and just use a little bit more of the dark soy sauce, which is what I'm using next. You should be able to find this in most places, but there is a version of Thai dark soy sauce that also has just a little bit more sweetness to it. Here it is. Again, if you can't find these, there's some simple ingredients that we can try to swap with, but this one you should be able to find in most grocery stores. This is your oyster sauce. Then my favorite fish sauce is this one. You can find this also in a lot of grocery stores. Give that a really good mix. We want to make sure we get these all combined. But we have a little more sauce than we actually need here. Just in case the wok gets a little bit dry, we can add a little bit more. Or you can save it for later. It does keep well. Our next ingredient to prep is our garlic. We want to get about 5 or 6 cloves out here. We want to get the skins off, take the ends off, and then chop this up fairly finely. Let's set that aside in a small bowl. Then what we're going to go ahead and do is make a quick sauce that you can put on after. If you look at a lot of Thai tables, there's a bunch of other things you can add to your dishes. This is one of the best ones that goes with it. So these are Thai red chilies. You should be able to find these in a lot of grocery markets as well. But these are really spicy. So I'm only using 3 and then 1 clove of garlic. We're going to take these and cut the ends off, and then we're going to go ahead and dice them up and put them into a mortar and pestle. Same thing with the garlic. Be very careful with these though. Again, they're really spicy. So we want to make sure that we're carefully chopping these to make sure that the seeds don't go anywhere and you're keeping your board clean as well. Get that all into your mortar and pestle. Now we're going to go ahead and start to grind that up in there. Again, make sure that you're very careful here to get all of those seeds and making sure that they're not around the kitchen. Grind that up into a fairly coarse paste. It doesn't have to be too fine here. But then what we're going to do is take about a half a cup of vinegar. This is white vinegar. Put it into a jar, and then we're going to scoop all of that into the jar itself. We're just going to give it a good mix, and that's going to be a sauce that you can put on top that's absolutely delicious and adds that extra layer of flavor with a little bit of spice and a little bit of salt. Give your board one really good clean, making sure that we're getting up all of those Thai chilies. Then you're going to go ahead and heat up your wok. We want it to start smoking for our chicken here. While that's heating up, go ahead and whisk 1 egg into a cup here. This is going to be something we set aside and again get into the wok. Now that it's smoking, go ahead and lay down a little bit of oil. You can also do the same thing in a larger pan too. I just happen to use an induction wok. So you see it gets really hot pretty quickly. So I'm laying down some avocado oil here. You can use any neutral oil that doesn't have a ton of flavor but has a high smoke point. This may still set off your smoke alarms, so just beware. Once that oil's hot, go ahead and drop in your chicken. You want a good sear here, so spread it out in the pan, making sure that everything has contact and we're not steaming too much. If you're using chicken breasts, it's still the same. We're going to let this cook for 2 to 3 minutes. In some cases, you may need to actually drain out some of the water. I needed to here. It was a little too moist and you can't get a good sear. So I put it back on. Again, high heat. This is where we want to spread it back out, make sure that we're getting as good a contact with that pan as possible. Keep stirring a little bit, but you'll see there's still more juice that's coming out. So what I do is I pull it to the side and let that juice run to the middle. So that way they're still getting good contact with the outside edge of the pan and not just boiling in there. Once the chicken's done, go ahead and put that into a bowl. You don't have to pull all the juice out of the pan. Again, you can leave that aside because we really don't want it. We want this to be fairly juicy, but the chicken's going to do that on its own. Now, bring the wok back. I went and rinsed it out a little bit. We want to bring this to a medium-high heat, not as high as it was with the chicken. Get some oil down again, and then we're going to start to put in our next ingredients. So this is where we start to put in our broccoli. We want to sear this off just a little bit. The stems are going to char as well as that. Then we bring in our noodles. Now these are the homemade noodles that I did, which are much wider, but you'll see they're a little bit broken up, which is not ideal. When I did the first version of this, when I tried it out, they were not broken up like this, but they don't keep all that well in the fridge. Go ahead and let these sit for a minute. That way they stir fry and get in that oil just a little bit. Then you can give them 1 or 2 really good mixes. Then what we're going to do is push it all aside and bring in our egg here. Lay down a little bit of oil, and then we're going to go ahead and get that egg in there. Put it to the side, and then you can start to mix it up. This is going to fry with the rest of the ingredients, and that's where we're going to finish this up. Again, we want to make sure we get a little bit of char on the veggies as well as onto the noodles and the egg. Then we can bring in our sauce. We're bringing in about a tablespoon here. This is something where it's to taste, but you don't want it to be too wet. So make sure you just pour a little bit in, and then if you need to, you can add more after, but you can't take it away. Give it a good mix, and then again, we're going to let this sit for a second. We want to make sure we use that char from the wok to actually get it done. Again, same thing on a pan. We need to maybe add a little bit more heat, so you may have to turn up your heat just a little bit to add a little bit of that char. We want it to char and then bring a little bit of that caramelization. Next, we're bringing our chicken. This is where we're just putting a little portion of that chicken in here, and then we're going to give that one more mix too. Here are our final touches. We're going to add a little bit of white pepper, and then some MSG, and then we're going to put our garlic in as well. We want these in the end because they add a lot of flavor, and that garlic, we don't want it to burn. So that's why I always put it in near the end. Give it one more final stir. Get everything off the bottom, get all those nice crusty bits. Then we're going to plate it up. Get that into a bowl, and let's get ready to start plating it. But like I mentioned, we're only doing these in small batches. So here's the second batch that I made with the other noodles that were the dry noodles. You'll notice that those are a lot more noticeable in here. These definitely aren't my preference, but they still work in a pinch. So if you can only find these, they still work. Doesn't that look great? Now let's finish plating this. Let's bring in a little bit of white pepper and then a little bit of that vinegar sauce that we made. As I'm plating this, I'm reminded why I fell in love with Thailand in the first place. Not just because the food was incredible, but because it was intentional in how it felt. Simple ingredients, deep respect for balance. Every dish told a story. That trip didn't just change how I eat, it changed how I cook. And standing here now in my own kitchen making pad see ew for my family, it feels like I get to bring a little piece of Thailand home with me. Different place, different kitchen. Same appreciation for flavor, care, and sharing something special and meaningful around the table. If you enjoyed cooking this with me, hit like, subscribe, and tell me what dish or country I should bring into our kitchen next. From Thailand to our home, thanks for being here.